Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. I am your host today, Zachingo Finch, and today I am joined by yourselves, dear listeners. Alas, scheduling conflicts and illness have struck the team once again. So as the last man standing, I will be here to guide you through another manager's profile today. And it's a shame that I don't get the insights from my wonderful colleagues, Greg and Oscar. I wish Greg a speedy recovery, and I'm hoping I can wrangle Oscar down when his schedule's a little bit easier. So until then, it will be another little bit of a sort of monologue-y episode. I'll do my best to try and pretend I'm having a conversation with yourselves. So yeah, we'll get into it. So today we are looking at Liam Rosenior, and Liam Rossini was probably one of the earliest coaches that was linked with us alongside Danny Roll, seen as more of a kind of wild card option, but an option that is starting to fade a little bit. And there are a multitude of reasons for that. And we'll get to that probably towards the end of the episode, after we just talk about him and his career and, you know, how he's kind of ended up as a runner and what would be really good about him joining us. This is my probably our fourth attempt through. A couple of times I stumbled so much over my words, I completely lost track of where I was. And I apologise if you're listening to yesterday, you kind of felt a little bit like that. But yeah, a combination of technical issues, colleagues being gone, means I am trying my best to hold down the fort. So we're going to go through it together. You're going to make it through, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll know something more, even if it's just sort of information to share with your friends or at the pub. I hope that I can be of some use in helping you, add to that chat about who our potential coaches could be. So let's just get straight into it, shall we? So, Liam Rosenior, born in 1984. He's currently 40 years of age. Of the profiles that I've done, he is the second oldest. It depends if you really count the Ralph Hasenhüttl episode yesterday as a profile. Again, it was more kind of addressing the rumours and spiral from that. However, he is just a tad older than both Will Steele and Danny Roll, not by a lot. He is the current manager of Strasbourg, who in recent days and months and weeks, we have had a bit more interaction with than we probably would have previously. And that is due to Sam Amu going to Strasbourg on loan in January, although that loan is set to become permanent. We were looking to buy one of their centre-backs, but once the Sam deal was over the line, that fell through, which is less than ideal. But then again, recruitment this season, what can I say? And they're doing quite well in the French League One. They currently sixth in the table, with a joint amount of points as LOSC and Nice, who are both in fifth and fourth, respectively. They are only 2 points off of Marseille in second, but obviously quite a bit off of PSG, who, as per usual, have been the runaway leaders of League One and runaway winners. One of the exciting things for Strasbourg is that if they stay where they are currently, they will qualify for Conference League spots. And again, the points difference is quite small. They could even end up with a Champions League spot. I don't know how many games they've got left. I know they recently had a win against PSG, a 2-1 win over the weekend, which I'm sure Arsenal fans will be very happy to hear, because it will knock the confidence of PSG, I'm sure, or alternatively, they'll come out fighting. But either way, it shows you that they can fight the big ones in their league too. Sekou Mara is currently there as well. It's where he disappeared to after he went at the end of the championship season. And for anyone that plays Football Manager, I'm a big Football Manager fan, as a lot of any long-term listeners will know. Former FM Wonder Kid, Valentin Barco, who is also currently there on loan from Brighton. For more Saints links as well, it's where Morgan Schneiderlin spent a lot of his career as well. He played for a hot minute. So, yeah, we've got some sort of strenuous links there. They're a team that are doing very well. And I think that's worth bearing in mind when you look at the challenge that is coming to Southampton Football Club, especially in the current climate. If you are running a team that are doing very, very well, that potentially have European places, why would you want to leave? as I said, we'll get into that in a bit. I've also done my standard have a look at his agency and have a look at the kind of people he surrounds himself with. Because again, I find that kind of stuff fascinating because, these are the kind of people when they're going, these are the kind of people that are going to be getting the same advice as one another from, they're the kind of people that are going to end up at the same sort of, like award ceremonies and conferences and bits and pieces. So he is part of Wasserman, who are an American extensive network of both managers and players. Some of their current managers are Arteta, former Saints manager Ronald Koeman, Maresca, Eddie Howe, and potential future Saints managers Gary O'Neill and Steven Gerrard, who, alas, whether I like it or not, are managers in the running to take over the job. From a player perspective, you have both former Saint Tino Livramento and current Saint Flynn Downs, and also Saints loanee Leslie Ugochukwu. There are significantly more, but to be honest, the entire roster of that agency would take up a podcast on its own. So, what do we know about Liam Rosenior? Before he was a manager, he was a professional footballer. He had over 393 senior appearances, only scoring 4 goals during that time. However, it wasn't really his job as a fullback, but on occasion winger. He even managed a few England appearances, but all of those appearances were in the under-20s and under-21s. He has played for a large variety of clubs, starting at Bristol City, went on to play for Fulham, Reading, Ipswich, Hull, who he would eventually manage, and ending his career at Brighton and Hove Albion. And then he retired from playing and started his career in coaching, but also did the standard thing that a lot of footballers do, which is before deciding on coaching, did a bit of punditry work as well. And we'll get into his coaching career after a word from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique.
And we are back. So, when we left off, he had just retired from football and he started his coaching career as an under-23s coach for Brighton Hove Albion, where he also did a bit of punditry work for Sky. So he did that standard sort of ex-footballer thing where you're trying to figure out what you kind of want to do after football and whether that's stay in football and coaching, do a bit of punditry work, completely disappear out of life and sit doing other bits and pieces. But for him, obviously, coaching is where he ended up. And that is where it all started. His first job outside of Brighton was Derby County. So he joined as a specialist first team coach under Philip Cuckoo in July 2019. Spent some time there before becoming assistant manager under Wayne Rooney during his tenure as manager in 2021. And after Rooney left, even had a little bit of a spell as interim manager, staying from June 2022 up until September, when Paul Warne took charge and thus Rosignier's managerial career at Derby came to an end. This is when he ended up at Hull City. He took charge of Hull in November 2022 on a 3-year contract. So we can already start to see sort of championship credentials. He's worked in Derby at the time. He's worked in Hull. Things to bear in mind here are that if he's done the championship a few times, is that where he wants to be going forward? Is it a step backwards in his career if he left to go to the French league and fight for European places, and instead we're expecting him to come back and help Southampton? For me personally, I kind of feel like he feels like he's done his time. And also, I think he did a really good job in the championship. But alas, So his employers did not. And remarkably, in May 2024, he was laid off. He was fired after Hull narrowly finished 7th, missing out on the playoff places. Obviously, we were having a really good time. Life was significantly better as a Saints fan in May 2024. I guess we were still nervous because of the playoffs, but we had the West Brom game to come and the incredible scenes at Wembley. But I still even remember at this point, me and Greg had a conversation at the time. It's a bit weird. The Hull have fired their manager, right? Like they were doing really, really well. Very, very surprised. And the ownership behind Hull City said that the reason wasn't due to them missing out on the playoff spots, but apparently due to the difference that Rossignor had in football philosophy with the ownership, and that they wanted more attacking football, and that was something that he was unable to provide them. Whatever the reason, it obviously didn't really work out too well for Hull City. Former Southampton manager Ruben Sellis is now at Hull City, and they managed to just about stay up at the end of this championship season. So be careful what you wish for. This is what happens, I guess, when sometimes owners take a little bit too much of an interest in what's going on in the footballing side. Whether or not you consider that to be a good or a bad thing with us, I think the lack of paying any level of attention to how bad the football had got is probably what caused more of our issues. But maybe you don't want, them playing Football Manager with their teams. Either way, it is what it is. Rossignor did not stay unemployed for a long period of time. He actually was picked up by Strasbourg in July 2024, replacing ex-Arsenal legend and former Crystal Palace manager Patrick Vieira. And yeah, this is where he obviously became popular and has got to the point where he is with the team now. His sort of investment in the youth, which we've seen by the fact that he poached probably one of our best youth players, was evident from day one. His first game, all of the outfield players that he played were under the age of 23, which, if I remember rightly, and I think according to the source, broke a League One record for playing that amount of youth in a team. They ended up drawing with Montpellier 1-1. But yeah, it's he didn't stay unemployed for very long, and I think that it will be difficult to coax him from a team that he has had success with so far. So according to Transfer Market, and he likes to play a 4-2-3-1. Take that with a grain of salt and how you will. But either way, let's have a look at his record at Strasbourg so far. So 18 wins, pretty solid, 9 draws and only 8 losses. So far, he's managed an average of 1.8 points per game, which out of all of the manager profiles we've done so far is probably the highest average points per game. However, again, statistics, take it with a grain of salt. I know that we are putting a lot of hope, and I know that Spores is putting a lot of hope into the sort of analytical side of things, but you're going to look at more than just a couple of bits of statistics on a website. However, at his time at Hull, he managed 78 games, and that was slightly more balanced with 27 wins, 28 draws, and 23 losses. So sort of similar numbers across the board with an average of 1.4 points per game per average. So why is it important? Well, obviously that would be comparable to how we would be in the Championship with us. One of the things I think that people have said, and I don't necessarily know if I believe, is he had a bit of a weaker squad when he was at Hull, and he could do more with our squad. I don't know, personally, if we're going to have the squad we currently have going into the Championship season. There's going to be a lot of rebuild involved. I think a lot of us aren't under that impression, and I don't know if even we went in with the squad that we currently have whether or not we would be able to do what we did the first time around. I don't know how many of those players are sort of up for that fight. I don't know how many of those players would be able to deal with that again. And I think we'll probably have quite a major clear out in the summer, as we've discussed multiple times in the pod. So it does give any incoming manager, I guess, a chance to stamp their seal. I don't want to say impart their philosophy because it will upset Greg, but sort of establish their own identity. So, yeah, it then raises the question as to whether or not he's actually a likely candidate to come here. And I don't want to disappoint anybody, but I think the answer to that is no. And I'll go into the details and the reasons as to why I believe that after a word from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. So, we are back, dear listeners, and yeah, I have expressed what I believe, and I do not believe that he will be the next Southampton manager. I caveat with the fact that we are not experts here. I'm probably more armchair than the other two combined. Oscar coaches in football. Greg plays regularly. Greg is a season ticket holder. I watch every single game, but I know that that's not the same as being there. Been a few times this year when I've been able to afford to go, but we have spent a lot of this season reading a lot of articles, paying attention to a lot of the sort of ins and outs of all these kind of things. And there's more than a few reasons as to why I believe that. But if it ends up going wrong, football's a strange old game. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of, it might be dependent on the person being in the room at the time and having the right words and the right conversations. Bear in mind that Jesse March was pretty much a shoo-in to take over before Russell Martin, if you remember rightly. He was even spotted in Harbar on the 6th. He'd had the meeting, and then something about the conversation didn't go their way, and that ended up not happening. So we ended up with Russell Martin, and the rest is history. So if he does end up here, I'm quite happy to hold my hands up and say I didn't think it would happen. So why is it that I don't believe that? Well, news has emerged since he became one of the original frontrunners, and the biggest piece of news and the biggest piece of that puzzle in my mind is the fact that he has recently signed, as I think it was the 25th of April, a new contract with Strasbourg for 3 years. Now, I am also very aware that in this day and age that signing new contracts doesn't really mean a huge amount. Contracts are used more than anything as bargaining tools. Is a way for clubs to have to pay more for players. It is a way for people to get more money. But I do think it would be a bit crazy to just sign a contract and leave almost the next day, unless there is some sort of pre-written agreement there. For me, it also shows that there is a commitment to Strasbourg a bit more than I think most people were letting on. Most people thought there was kind of wanting that foot out of the door, but they are an attractive club to be at. He's, doing good stuff with them. He's also potentially got European football next season. Let's not pretend that the allure of managing a team in Europe, regardless of what league it is, in any sort of European competition, that is not a positive thing and a thing that most managers would want in their career. It's almost, similar to how a lot of people seem to think that Will Still will just want to drop being a Rems and coming over to us. It's not the same as it was. Similar to Will Still, right? Like I spoke about yesterday in the Hassan Hutel episode, there are people that when we're posting clips about these sort of manager profiles, a lot of people going, why would he want to come? And obviously, with how well Strasbourg are doing, I think there's even more of an argument for Liam Rosenior to not want to come. And even more so, the fact that he signed this contract says a lot. There are other reasons why people have speculated he signed this contract. So one of the other big things is that he has a lot of Premier League interest. So we are a small fish in a much bigger pond. And as much as maybe you could say he doesn't have the right experience, people would question that. Some of the clubs he's been linked with and some of the clubs that are talking about getting rid of their manager are people like Fulham and Crystal Palace, which doesn't seem realistic. They've had okay seasons. There's even been tenuous links to Chelsea. I do not think that there is anything that is there to tempt him in the Championship, including us. I think that if you start to get linked with the Premier League and Premier League clubs, that's where you will potentially go, right? Whether it's one of the newly promoted clubs, very much doubt that. But it just seems that we are not an attractive prospect to him, a man who has already fought in the Championship before, twice. he seems to be doing really well. He's really happy where he is. He signed a new contract where he is, and he's being linked to a higher tier of football. Just from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like he would want to come into a club that is going to go through a major restructure, major rebuild to try and get us up to the Premier League if Premier League clubs would sign him, right? If you look at where Russell Martin was previously, and look at some of the other people we've been linked with. Again, even if Will's still being linked with us, people find that baffling, despite the fact that by the sounds of it, he's had an interview, and that's kind of the level he's trying to get into. He's trying to get into English management, whereas Rossignor has left the Championship after managing the Championship, admittedly not through his own decision. But if you are being linked with clubs as prestigious as Chelsea, I just don't see the desire to want to come and take over little Southampton and help us out of a rut. I think it would be a good appointment if it does happen. I wouldn't be adverse to it. As I said, you can kind of see that his record speaks for himself. He's got a big focus on the youth, and our academy is obviously hugely important to the development of the club going forward. The odds have dropped on him a little bit. He's now sort of 16-1 alongside Steven Gerrard. So yeah, I just think that it's not the nail in the coffin, but I think that it is far more unlikely now than it was, say, a week and a half ago. I don't think that we have a lack of candidates, but I do think with the idea that other clubs are sniffing around for a role as well, and other clubs will probably come in, it's that we need to look at it as sort of realistic and holistic approach. We might not get all of our first choices. I think so much of the fan base are locked in on role, and he has already had his head, pointing towards Leicester and potentially over to Germany as well. So, we might end up with one of these sort of wild cards that we end up not even covering. And I think that we're going to have to hope that it works out that way, because we live in a tough time, I think, for, managing know how important it's going to be to get right this time around. And if somebody isn't really interested and has already having their head moved by teams above, do you think that that's the best person to appoint for the club? Probably not. If he ever ends up in charge, will I back him? I will back him until I do not. I think I said that similar things yesterday with the Ralph Hasenhüttl episode. Whoever is in charge of Southampton Football Club, I will back them until they give me a reason to not. Me and Greg very much on the fence with Russell Martin for so long, because we never knew if he was going to. We just assumed they were never going to fire him because nothing he did got him fired. I think Juric we turned a lot quicker, but I think that's because obvious reasons. So yeah, I'm hoping that whoever we get in charge going forward really, really wants to be here. And no disrespect to Liam Rosenior, it doesn't really look like his heart's here, and that's fine. And, I don't think you sign a contract for 3 years at a place and then expect to leave the next day unless you get poached by a much bigger club. And the reality of the situation is I don't think, in the context of where we are now and in the context of the challenge that next season will bring, we are a bigger club right now that to match the aspirations of a manager like that. I'm happy to be wrong. I know that people probably won't agree on my assessment, but it is what it is. As I said, we've never claimed to be incredible experts here. We just base it off of our own opinions and what we've seen through now 194 episodes of covering Southampton. And let's just remind you that only 2 league wins in that. Oh, that's harrowing. But alas, thank you very much for joining me, dear listeners. We will be back tomorrow with either a preview or a crossover if we manage to get all of our ducks in a row and by some sort of miracle, everyone manages to get easier schedules and recover better. We appreciate you listening. We are on all of the social medias. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We are on Blue Sky. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. So, give us a like, give us a follow, share your opinions on who you think is going to be the next manager. If you think my takes are terrible, that's fine. Point them out. I've never said that they were going to be the most popular things. I still don't think it's going to upset as much people as when Oscar said that he thought the Super League was a good idea. We're never recovering from those numbers. So until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.